Hello, chess fans. This is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 142 in the series Viewers Games. If you would like your game to be analyzed on Chess to Impress, then send it to me by email to classroomchess64@gmail.com. It is the turn of Sarvesh. Sir, I'm Sarvesh Kumar from India. I like your YouTube channel very much. I like the viewers game analysis very much. I'm sending one rapid game played on chess.com. My current rapid rating is 1330. I have been playing chess for 3 years. Please analyze this game and please show my mistakes, says Sarvesh, who goes under the name of AMY503799 on chess.com. I always wonder how people come up with those names. And his opponent is Paps319. Sarvesh had a rating of 1327 when his game was played on the 23rd of May 2020. His opponent had 30 points more. He had 1357 rating. It was a blitz game, 15 minutes for the whole game plus a 10-second increment per move. Let's have a look at Sarvesh's game. He opened with the e-pawn, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4, the Italian game. And here black played h6, and at first this looks like a rather pointless move. But that is not true. It has been played by grandmasters. It's keeping a knight from g5, putting the finger on the weak f7 square that way. Sarvesh pushed in the center with d4. That pawn was taken, knight takes, and here queen f6 was played in the only grandmaster game in my database. Black's setup is somewhat provocative. He was trying to get his lower rated opponent out of his comfort zone, but it didn't work, as white, a player of international master strength, won that game. Queen f6 was not played by black in Sarvesh's game. He played his knight to e5, attacking the bishop. The bishop dropped back to b3, and here knight f6 is a good developing move, and so is bishop c5, but c6 was played by black. It's really time to start developing some pieces. c6 is not a great move. Sarvesh castled, he continues his development. d6, and here Sarvesh also played his h-pawn, h3, probably wanting to keep a bishop from g4. The engine gives two options that are better. f4 is a move that the engine likes. After bishop g4, the queen just steps aside. And also knight c3 is a move that the engine likes. After bishop g4, then there is f3 kicking that bishop back. As mentioned, h3 was played by Sarvesh in this position. Knight f6 developing, knight c3, bishop e7, and f4 kicking that knight on e5. The knight dropped back to d7, and here knight f5 played after 1 minute and 52 seconds of thought, and it's a good one from Sarvesh, attacking two of black's pawns. The one on d6 is also attacked by the queen, and the one on g7. White is going to win a pawn. Black castled, protecting the g7 pawn, and now you can just take on d6. And that is winning a pawn, and also white has a very good position here. Unfortunately, Sarvesh did not see it, and after 26 seconds he played the bad move e4, e5. Instead of winning a pawn, he's now going to lose one, because black took on e5, f takes, and knight takes, and black has won a pawn. That's a bit unfortunate for Sarvesh. He took on e7, queen takes, and rook e1. Sarvesh had some compensation for the pawn with the bishop pair in an open position. And black's extra pawn is the one on f7, and that pawn doesn't play an important role yet. And now, as we'll see, the coming moves are all about putting pressure on the knight on e5, which is not very well supported. Sarvesh is going to put as much pressure on that knight as possible. He started with rook e1. The knight is now also pinned. That's quite uncomfortable. So black moved the queen to c7. Keep the knight protected and move the knight out of the pin. But here's a new pin, bishop f4. Now the Knight is pinned that way. And the best way to play for black here is queen b6 check. Getting the knight out of the pin once again. With a tempo, king has to step aside, and then you can play knight g6. That is the best way for black to solve the uncomfortable pinning problems. But after bishop f4, black did not find queen b6 check. He decided to protect the knight again with knight f to d7. It's now defended twice and attacked twice. But that knight is now blocking in the bishop. Queen d4 played after 1 minute by Sarvesh, attacking the knight a third time. But the engine points out an even stronger move for Sarvesh. He could have played the queen to h5 instead, and white can start an attack against black's king, which doesn't have a lot of defenders around it. It will take black many moves to develop his queenside, which makes white's attack quite promising. These pieces are still at home, the bishop is blocked in, it's not easy for black to develop. But queen d4 was played by Sarvesh, attacking the knight a third time. Black defends it a third time with rook e8 and rook e3. Logical play from Sarvesh, preparing to attack the knight a fourth time with bringing the rook to e1. Black played g5, hitting the bishop, bishop dropped back, and king g7. And as planned, rook a e1 attacks the knight a fourth time. And black has to defend it again, f6. And what now? It's not easy to attack the knight a fifth time. So what to play here? Sarvesh thought for 1 minute and 46 seconds and came up with h3, h4, and it's very hard to foresee, but black can now suddenly equalize, which is very surprising. It's all about the fact that the knight now has access to g4, that square. I'll show you one sample variation. After h4, black can play queen b6 again. And if you swap the queens, then black can untangle his pieces. So you want to keep the pressure on and not swap the queens, and for example play queen d2. But then there is that knight g4 move, which is now possible because the h-pawn moved from h3 to h4. This rook is pinned, so you cannot take the unprotected rook on e8. And that rook is not only pinned, but it is attacked 3 times, and black is back in the game. So h4 is quite an unfortunate move, but hard to foresee. The engine likes to move knight e4 instead, with the idea of jumping into d6. Black's pieces are stuck. It's unclear how he can untangle himself. Sarvesh is much better here. But as said, h4 was played, and with queen b6, black could have come back into this game. But he didn't see it, and he played a5 instead. The game goes on. Sarvesh took on g5, h takes, and again knight e4 is a good move here with an advantage for white. But here Sarvesh clearly did not see how to continue, and he played queen g4, and this move fails to a tactic against his bishop on b3, as we'll see. This is a crazy position, and I had a lot of fun analyzing this position with the engine. The queen, of course, is attacked on g4. What happens if you take it with black, which is not the best move? Well, you have to be careful with white. Don't recapture that queen on c7. And I wonder if Sarvesh had seen that he cannot recapture the queen, because then there is rook takes e3. And black wins. He wins a lot of material. No, after knight takes g4, taking your queen, the only move to stay in the game is rook e7 check. Had you seen that move, Sarvesh, when you played queen g4? Because after rook takes e7, rook takes e7 check, king h6, only then is it time to recapture the queen with bishop takes e7, and this position is equal. Nice variation. After queen g4, taking on g4 is not the best move. The best move is a tactic against the bishop with a4, and this is also a crazy variation. Does it not just drop that pawn on a4? Can you not just take it with the knight? No, you can't, because then there is knight takes g4, and again, do not recapture the queen immediately. Play that same move, rook e7 check, rook takes check, and now the king has to go to f8 in this variation. because after rook f7 check, the king goes to e8. You really have to take the queen back, bishop takes c7, and then there is rook takes a4, winning a piece. You cannot recapture the rook because then your rook on f7 will be lost. So in this position, after queen g4, the best move for black is to play a5, a4 with this crazy variation. It's not surprising that black didn't find it. He played b5 instead. And Sarvesh is still in the game. He played queen h5. And that queen was kicked with rook h8. And now dropping back to e2 is the best move. And this position is about equal still. But here Sarvesh makes an instructive mistake. He takes on e5 first, counterattacking black's queen. And after knight takes e5, only then did he drop the queen back to e2. But this is very different than the previous variation, because now this bishop has come to life. It was buried on c8, but after the swap on e5, it has come to life. And black played bishop g4. The bishop was buried, but now it is causing havoc in white's position. And a very important point is as well that white bishop is now in danger of being trapped with a4. And it no longer has the e6 square available, because that is now covered by black's bishop. And it wasn't in the previous position, because the bishop was on c8 with the knight on d7. So with that swap on e5, Sarvesh has helped black to improve his pieces, and you don't really want to do that. The alternative to bishop g4 would have been a5, a4, winning the bishop, but bishop g4 attacking white's queen is also a fine move. And now Sarvesh thought for 1 minute and 40 seconds, and he took on g4. Sarvesh sees that he's winning the queen back, that he's sacrificing here, but unfortunately the body count will end up in black's favor. What he could have done instead of taking on g4 is play a move like queen f2, but then after a4 his bishop is trapped. It has no squares on the diagonal. So Sarvesh was already in big trouble. As said, he played queen g4, and that queen was taken, and then there is rook e7 check, winning the queen back. Queen takes, rook takes check, and king g6, and if we do a body count now, we see that black has an extra exchange. Bishop e6, attacking the knight on g4, f5 to block the diagonal, and rook c7, attacking the pawn. Rook a6 is a bit of a strange way to protect that pawn, but it's good enough. And bishop f7 check by Sarvesh. King went to f6, and now rook d7 played after 2 minutes and 6 seconds of thought. And d7 is a very unfortunate square for the rook. If you want to put the video on pause, how does black now win more material? Backwards moves are always difficult to find, but black found it. He played knight e5, and that is a double attack, and the bishop is already attacked on f7 by the king. So black is going to win more material. Rook d6 check, king takes f7, and now black is a full rook up. Sarvesh played knight d5, his last move of the game. Here he resigned after making this move. Not because he's hanging the knight on d5, c takes d5 would be followed by rook takes a6. But after knight e5, black has many options. For example, knight c4, that is one of the many moves that he can play, and he just has an extra rook. Sarvesh wrote in his email to me, "My biggest problem is that I lost a one game." Yes, Sarvesh, you lost a one game, but it wasn't easy, and definitely not for a 1300 player. You played a very good game. You missed a simple win of a pawn in the opening, which was a phase of the game you played a lot better than your opponent. Instead, you dropped the pawn, but then played very well in the early middle game, putting a lot of pressure on that knight on e5, which caused black to put himself in a knot in order to keep everything together. Then you arrived at a situation where you could not easily put more pressure on that knight, and were at the "and what now" situation. And with the method of improving your worst piece, you may have stumbled upon the idea of improving your knight on c3, and would have played it to e4 in this position. This is the best move according to the engine, with the idea of jumping into d6 to put further pressure on black's position. Because you didn't know how to continue, you started to weaken your position somewhat and allowed the black pieces into the game. And then the tactics just did not work out for you. So this may be something for you to take away from this game. When you don't know what to do, one thing to look for is identifying your worst positioned piece in your army and see if you can improve that piece. It is a rule of thumb which can be used in many situations, and this game is a good example of it. Thank you very much, Sarvesh, for sharing this game. I commend you for sending in a loss, which is always much better learning material than a win. Thanks, Sarvesh, and well played. I hope you enjoyed Sarvesh's adventure in this game. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.